the things that I vividly remember was in the month of March 2020. I used to work for Indigo. I was a CHRO of Indigo, and country after country was getting closed down. Europe was the last one to get closed, and we had a European COO. And we were in the executive committee meeting, and so one of them was asking, what happens if Gurgaon gets closed down? So we used to be in Gurgaon then. And all of us said, no way, anything is going to get closed down in India. So we have already bujao the thali, and we have done all those things. We have a lot of summer coming up, and summers, even mosquitoes in Chennai don't survive. How will COVID survive? So much for prediction of future. Exactly in 2 weeks' time, the entire country closed down. And thereafter, lots of things happened. Now, in November last year, till the time we all saw ChatGPT and Sam Altman, how many of us had even heard of something called ChatGPT? Before November, I'm saying. Hardly anyone. Sam Altman was a not known source at all. And imagine in 2 months' time, he got fired from the board, and everybody was up in arms saying, how can you fire him? And then, just 3 weeks ago, DeepSeek came, and no one ever knew about it. So the question I wanted to ask, myself was, so we all are having conferences after conferences on future. We have 2 professors here. I don't know, there are several more professors. But it's not even remotely easy to predict what happens in a black swan event. Certainly very less possible with anything else. I used to work for Ford Motor Company many years ago, and we built the Maraimalai Nagar manufacturing plant here. At that point of time, no one ever knew that you could actually drive a car with electricity, right? And there was a time I used to work in Niskayana, New York at GE, and we were testing how you transfer electricity remotely. So what they were trying to do was, they were producing electricity in one corner of the room. It was such a big room like this. And on the other corner was a receiver, and they were trying to transfer electricity. And the intent was, can you make electricity in Alabama and send it to Ambasamudram or something like that, right? So I still remember, it was my first day in Niskayana. Someone said, Raj, can you walk across the road and the room? And I said, what is this? Is this some kind of a joke you guys have for new employees? They said, no, please walk. So I walked across the room like this, and they said, walk back again. And I walked back again. And everybody clapped hands, and they said, human beings are bad or good conductors of electricity. I'm saying, these are all PhDs, and I don't know, what are you guys talking about? They said, no, we were trying to transfer electricity, and we wanted to find out if you walk through it, will you get electricity shock and will you die? I'm saying, no, I don't want to die in New York, in New York State. Anywhere else is fine. But that said, we are going to talk about 2 things today. We're going to talk about future work, and we're going to talk about HR strategies, right? And so without much ado, we have a fantastic panel here. Meera is from Rise Global. She calls herself a futurist. She is up there in several conversations on future, etc. Then I have my good old friend Charles. Charles works for Zoho, a company that went and when everybody is trying to see where should our headquarters be, should it be in Manhattan or in Seattle downtown, they went to Sivagangai, right? This is Tenkasi, and then of course Charles has done a lot beyond just in Zoho, but that's what it is. Thiru is a brand custodian of Nokia. Now Nokia doesn't make phones anymore, but Thiru still makes the Nokia brand as good as it should be. So somebody other day posted, I don't know how many of you follow Thiru on Facebook. If you don't, you should. Somebody posted a picture, you do, right? And that's a good friend of mine from Reliance, and he said, this is the Rajinikanth of HR. So that's Thiru, and and then Tushna's from JCPenney. Now she's on her own, and I do a lot of my shopping when I go out on JCPenney. So Meera, why don't we start with you? I know you've been doing a lot of research, and she's got a doctorate as well, by the way, something which I've been wanting to do for many years, and I've been only spending money on college admissions and then kind of signing off after that. My wife basically thinks I contribute to the economy of of ISB. So Meera, for you, I wanna ask you, with all that you've been researching, what are some key trends for HR leaders so they can prepare well for future of work?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Raj. Quickly, let me thank Augie and CHRMP team for inviting us. Thank you so much. The question which Raj was asking about is the trends which are there. I think one which every panel speaks is all about AI and automation. I think that is the first trend which is coming out. Probably I will try to share at least around 5 to 6 trends which are there right now running for the HR people. AI and automation is definitely coming. It is an open secret. It's already there. And I think Tushana's panel also spoke about how there are new and effective tools which are coming in AI. So that is something which is trending, and the automation. So we have a lot of work to do in the upskilling part of it. The second thing which I wanted to really focus here is the trend is skill first approach. So I think every corporate should take this as a first thing, because degree doesn't stand much. So degree is the second thing and skill becomes the first thing. So skill first approach, not the degree. So because right now you have a lot of talent pool which is available in the market, but more than 50% of them are not fitting into the corporate sector at all because of the skill gap. So I think, and more or less, I also read a survey which spoke about around 10% of the global skill and 20% of the Indian titles and the new titles which are coming is not even available or not even known in the past year. So that is where we are heading, and mostly 70% of the skills which are going to come in 2030 are yet to be known. So that is where we are riding on. I think, so that brings back to telling that we have to look at the skill trends and not give much importance to the degree and things like that. The third thing is, I think we have to look at, because we are now addressing about Gen Z and Alpha coming in. So your career mapping for the person should be customized to, not for a role, but for an individual. Because the individual come with a lot of passion in working with ESG, working in AI, working something, parallelly. So I think the skill mapping or the competency mapping or the career mapping which need to be done for an individual. That's what I see. The trend need to move on, but it will have its own challenges, but whatever it is. And last but not the least, I think we are also talking about the leadership transition which is happening. So there, I think more focus need to be given for innovation and for the entrepreneurship. So because people wanted to take responsibility and accountability to what they are doing. So a lot of freedom and a lot of responsibility need to be given. So I think, I don't know how HR is going to figure out bringing that kind of a entrepreneurship responsibility to a person, but that might be a trend which you have to work, because most of them are going to work from home. They are going to do a remote job. It's going to be a hybrid job or whatever it is. I think this is the trend which I see, which will rock in the next 10 years.
Absolutely. How HR is going to figure out is the key question. Yeah. Let's not figure it out so we can all be employed for a long period of time, right? I mean, so that's it. Charles, I have to ask you this, absolutely, right? So as a company, Zoho promotes a lot of adaptability, from wherever you work. And of course, the word agility from the previous panel kept coming up. And you also talk about lifelong learning. And for me, some of these are directly connected to predictability and future. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Thanks, Raj. Thanks, CHRMP, for having us today. To give a classic example for your question, Zoho is there in the existence for almost 28 years. And we got to hear in Tamil Nadu only after GST. Yes? Hello? Yes? Right? So having said, Zoho is there in the industry for the last 28 years. In Tamil Nadu, we are here. We got to hear only after GST. Yes, as a brand. So having said, it took so many years to come to the limelight. So as an organization, Zoho believed that setting the foundation very strong plays a very, very key important role because we are talking about future ready. I'll give few examples rather than getting into the core philosophy and so on. One of the classic example which I would like to quote from Zoho is a very, very flat, simple hierarchy structure. We don't want to have fancy titles. Yes, if you want for the outside world, you have it based on your role. So we just have MTS, member technical staff, MLS, member leadership staff, and the top board, that's all. We really believe that as part of our culture in India, we have been graded right from our childhood. Right? You are a first bench student, you are a last bench student, you are a middle bench student, you are a first rank holder, you are a state topper. What happened to that one mark which you missed? Right? Zoho believes in completely avoiding or completely moving out of that ranking grade system as part of our performance management system. Yes, we can have tracking mechanism, we can have system in place. Let's not label someone with rank. He is a top performer. He is a fast track performer. I can give many examples because one of the key challenge which we face as part of the cross-generational workforce, I am a very slow, steady performer. I don't want to run a race just next 2 years and finish my career and so on. There is no end to it. And we call that as a fancy thing which we see in the SaaS world, especially in the recent times. For example, a developer earning 1 lakh per month, now somebody is ready to give 10 lakhs for just 2 years of experience. So we felt that ranking system plays a very, very important role in an employee. If we can just move out, employees can do the best instead of having, yes, I'm a 5 grade ranker today, tomorrow I should aim for 6. Last thing which I would like to highlight, giving complete freedom and flexibility for employees right from the first year when they started as an organization. In the offer letter, we have a clause in notice period at will, not with 60 days, 90 days notice period. At will. If you want to leave, just leave. We are ready to support. We are ready to give whatever opportunity, but we don't want to bargain. Right? So that's been the trend in the IT sector. I think these are top 3 differentiators which help the organization to set the foundation strong, wherein entire ecosystem was able to adapt to change. Yeah. Adapt to whatever opportunity. Because 30% or 40% I have another opportunity to explore rather than doing the same coding for so long.
Yeah.
I'll leave it here.
No, absolutely. We'll come back and touch upon some of what you just said, and especially about weekends, etc. I do remember at Ford Motor Company, they had a education kind of assistance, and you could pick anything that you want as studies. You didn't have to go to college and earn a degree. And I know a lot of my colleagues who went for horse riding lessons, and somebody asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, my preference would be a home-at-home, work-at-home dad looking after my 2 dogs. And, at some point in time, I should be able to do that. Thiru, I want to go to you next, and I'll come to you thereafter. Thiru, I know Nokia doesn't make phones anymore. The brand of Nokia was always that of a telephone. But beyond that, you're into networks and a lot of good things. So the thing that I was curious personally about is, he also does talent acquisition for a living, but he's also the brand custodian for Nokia here. So what are some innovative strategies that you have done as a part of employment brand?
Thanks, Raj, and thanks, CHRMP, for hiring me this today. Before directly getting to my current employment, I would go back to the HR experimentation part where I have been in the last 9 to 10 years here. So that speaks a lot about what the context is all about. To this question, so I will set up a small context here. So if we drew a pyramid here, like to understand the top of the pyramid, we have been known from industry 1.0 to industry 5.0. The bottom of the pyramid, the two lenses. So if I career the plot of an individual's the talents here, there were days where people started looking company as a career. People join one company, they work for a company, and they leave the same company, get retirement in the same company here. That is company as a career. Then that paradigm shifted towards job as a career. They started shifting multiple jobs. So while the purpose of job is getting into one track, parallelly there is another track is evolving, while the Gen Z and the upcoming new generations coming into picture. It is all about skill economy here. It is good to see the morning panels have touched upon that skills taxonomy here, right? So this is the other side of the pyramid. Coming to the third angle of the pyramid here, so we have seen the roadmap of the digitalization. It started with digital adoption, and it started with digital transformation. Then we have seen during the COVID era, the digital disruption happens. So everything is connected virtually here. And what we are witnessing today, it is not only about digital disruption, it is all about industry reinvention. Your automobile industry started looking into EV segments. Your healthcare hospital industries started looking into retail and healthcare products. And your media companies have started looking into news and broadcast. And so every industry started to reinvent themselves, right? So which means if you connect this pyramid, so likely as said, between 4.0 to 5.0, the industrialization happens. And between the digital disruption to industry reinvention happens, while as a talent, as a recruiter, as a talent marketing professional, as a talent evangelist. So how you see people, your future prospective candidates is like how you're going to surface the skill set economy over here. So which means you're going to lay down a strategy roadmap, not from a talent attraction strategy, not from a talent acquisition strategy. You define 40% of your resources and invest in talent awareness part. That is your pillar one. Which means your audiences, your future candidates should know about who you are, what do you do, and what is the existence while we are speaking about the industry reinvention. That serves a purpose. Coming to the next pillar, it is all about the talent attraction. Again, the talent attraction doesn't mean it is part of the recruitment or the talent acquisition. It is not part of the hiring. It is all about how you inspire people. That which means you allocate 40% of your resources in talent attraction pillar. The rest, the 20% goes to your recruitment strategy part, where all your promotional, social media, your ATS and everything happens. Today, most of the organization fails in talent attraction strategy. The reason is they invest almost 100% of their resources in recruitment strategy. You get demand from the business. The moment once you get the demand from the business, you put it on Naukri, LinkedIn, or you do all promotional. So that is recruitment marketing. That is not employer branding or talent branding, not talent awareness. That is the reason you expect the results only in terms of the hiring numbers, not from awareness and attraction perspective here. I'm just giving a pass here. I will also read well into the such things.
No, makes sense. I like the pyramidal approach to how you thoughtfully go through branding. So thank you for that, Thiru. Tushna, I know as a consultant and prior to that in JCPenney, and now with Perfios, you've done, and I know we talked about this, you've done a fair amount of work on upskilling and reskilling, especially with future as a context. So can you throw some light on that?
And I think our panelists spoke a lot about upskilling and reskilling. There was another spin we put to this, and it's done twice over. We took the spin of work. So we started looking at work in the form of simple, intermediate, and complex work packages. So we got completely out of the hierarchical concept, no roles, no structures, but what kind of work do we have in the organization, and map to that what are the kind of skills we need. And to that, we then mapped out the proficiency versus potential. So the traditional 9 boxes, performance versus potential, we looked at proficiency versus potential. And we then started identifying the litmus test of the organization was, what's the kind of work that we are good at today? What amount of talent will we now need to buy, build, or bought? Right? And that's when the reskilling, cross-skilling, and upskilling concept started. It then got mapped to work. people started looking at the nature of work they were good at. When I was at Rolls-Royce, we called it fancy word, we called it the license to operate, right? And when I was at First American, we linked it to 5x growth strategy, and we're building it now even at Perfios. We're linking work packages, and linking that to a skilling focus. So I think that's another dimension to add to all what our panelists have spoken.
No, I like the proficiency to potential kind of matrix, and I think that's a big one, because end of the day sometimes we all think we are also proficient, so and we don't add to that. I know we are down to the last 10 minutes or so. I want to ask if anyone here among the attendees have a question for any of the panelists.
VUCA world, how can you predict the future and go for a future-ready workforce? Things are not so easy, and
Great
particularly
question.
with the technology, changing so much, so fast.
Yes. So I'll take this in two ways. We've done this when I was at First American, and this was the same question the business head had asked me. We've got so much changing, what do we do? So the first part of it was the leadership readiness. And we got our leaders, and the traditional thought would have been, let's identify who is our leadership pipeline and let's figure out who's ready. But we took a spin at this in a very different way, and we innovated this, and we called it out the leadership projects. Leadership projects was, we took all our second line leaders, because we saw there was potential there, and we got them to identify certain strategic problem areas, the entire study on work, jobs and skills, and we mapped it to the tech side of the business. And we realized we needed more, as I'd spoken earlier, fungible talent. We needed full stack developers. We needed to know which kind of skill sets people had and what were we not utilizing and what we really needed to further upskill. So I think it's a constant churn that organizations need to focus on, and it's no one answer for all of it.
But I think it was a very important question. How do you predict? And what do you do in order to even predict, right? A lot of times we don't predict right, and I think the quickest examples that come to my mind is Motorola. At one point in time, Motorola was an invincible telecom company that was making handsets, etc., etc. And so someone, in retrospect, a lot of things could have been found a lot earlier. So someone asked a question: what could have the CHRO of Motorola done differently? And the answer was that could that CHRO have predicted that the people that are being hired by this so-called computer company called Apple were actually not going to go build a computer, but they were going to build a handset. So, it does take in hindsight, a lot of things could be done. Any other questions for the panel?
Data. Data never lies. So we had in IBM, a 5% target for poor performers. Later on, I realized that was just an unrealistic target until we used data. Now, when I say this, when we moved into AI systems, we got enough insight into those who were trending to become low performers. All right? And therefore, interventions happened much before the annual appraisal cycle. Okay? So that embarrassing, difficult conversation you're going to be having with that employee kind of happened, where you were able to take that employee forward and make them renewable. So data helped us get there. And today we're not driven by a number or a percentage of poor performers, but every aspect on that life cycle depends on what kind of a HRMS system you're using and whether it's AI enabled like yours. But I think it gives you great insight, sir. Good question. Thank you.
Actually, something that he said, his opening line is has to guard a connection to the question I asked, which is about, he said data never lies. And I believe false data also never lies, right? And that is where the ethical part of business comes in. Now, that is where I have a fundamental, question about ethics in artificial intelligence or the future of the workplace. Because when the human mind is not tuned, this goes back to what Raj said in the beginning, that there is a spiritual connection between all of you. I think there is a connection everywhere. And when you use false data, especially in artificial intelligence or in big data, you're screwing up the entire economy probably the entire social ecosystem. And that is where I'd like to ask any one of you who would like to answer.
Yeah, anyone who wants to take that question?
Because this is a fundamental challenge for all of us. I actually thought of Charles, so I'm glad he's wanting to answer.
Yeah. When we are talking about AI and so on, I think human intervention is very, very important irrespective of whatever technology we bring in. Even as he said, data is required just for reference. Human intelligence plays a very, very important role to take our own gut feel to decide on what is right and what is wrong and which can suit our organization needs. So HR intervention, human intervention plays a very, very important role as far as any technology or disruption which we see.
Absolutely well said. Yes, sir.
My question goes like this. So there are a lot of attritions which are happening in the company, right, nowadays. So there are a lot of attritions. A lot of people are moving out of the organizations. So I'm not talking from the perspective of people losing jobs, but I'm talking from the perspective of how those people can be retained in those companies. So what kind of cultural and policy changes can be brought into the companies, including the government sector, to make these changes so people stay with the companies, people love to stay with the companies?
Again, a classic example which I have encountered, I don't want to name the organization, during one of my earlier tenure, one fine afternoon, a Wednesday afternoon, I've been asked to send closely about 430 employees over the weekend. 430. Okay? And I've gone mad. And after a few hours, I left home. I didn't turn back to office. And one of my close HR friends said, please don't take it personally. It's your job. How you handle with grace plays a very important role. After 2-3 days, the next Monday I went, 4:30 went to somewhere about 3:50 or so. As he said, I went back to my CHRO with data, with all 350 employees of whatever Excel sheet which I can spread and share it with them. The time and effort given by our talent TA team, by the panel, by the BU heads, the percentage which we gave, their skill set, during their tenure, whatever awards they received, the client appreciations and so on. I don't know whether you can believe, sir, out of that, easily about 30% we are being retained in the same company. I think as HR leaders, if we can talk, as Bharathan rightly said, if we are not talking about numbers and business, we are out of the game.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where HR plays a very important role to really fight with the management and ensure that, whatever the time, energy, and everything which we invested on, with whatever the bunch which you are talking about, I think we can play an important role.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Professor has a question. Yeah.
Which is a company implementing a lot of solar and renewable energy projects. So we are associated with the PM internship scheme for future ready workforce, particularly among the graduates only. Not necessarily they should be a technical graduate. And so far about 5,000 graduates have been trained for the future ready for managing this renewable energy where a lot of employment opportunities are there. And my question is to Charles only, coming from Tenkasi, place where I belong to. So what role Soho can play in this regard under the PM internship scheme?
I think whatever initiative which we have been seeing from the government side, yes, well received by the industries, but we do see a lot of pressure, right? One. Number two, are we really sustaining that initiative is the question which I have for the entire members who are here. Easily out of 17,000 employees, about more than 40% of our employees came through unconventional hiring. What we call it as PM internship, and we call it as unconventional hiring. I'll give one classic example. The 40% which I mentioned, one person whom I've seen in Puducherry recently in one of the job fair hosted by the governor of Puducherry. I was there along with the team, and after completing the job fair by around 6, I saw the beautiful garden in that university, had a selfie. One guy came, ran, and he said, "Sir, can I help you with a selfie?" I said, "Yes, okay." And he helped with the photo, and I was there in the car along with my team. Immediately, he didn't carry anything. Suddenly, he took his hand, அப்படியே பின்னாடி சட்டைக்குள்ளேருந்து ஒரு வேர்த்து விறுவிறுக்க ஒரு பேப்பர் சார். ஸ்வெட். எனக்கு அதை வாங்குறதுக்கே இதை வச்சு நான் என்ன பண்ண போகிறேன்? HR, we know, we get so many resumes, we don't even have space to keep. During the travel, I noticed, out of this 20 years of my HR journey, I have never seen an infographic resume like the resume which I saw that day. To cut the story short, that same gentleman is working as the chief design officer in one of the group of our Zoho company. And this is the unconventional hiring which I am talking about. PM internship, yes, we have started successfully. We are doing it in Tenkasi, and we are really open to expand in other smaller towns where we have.
Absolutely, absolutely. At Genpact, we used to call it trespassers will be hired. So, so we are now down on time. I want to thank you, Charles. Thank you, Thiru. Meera, thank you very much. Tushna, it was a pleasure being in this group.